So I actually got my first credit card at the age of 16. Believe it or not, I bought a leather bomber jacket with my $200 credit limit, and I loved that jacket. So that kind of gave me, I think purchasing gives me like a little bit of a dopamine rush. And that's where I think I connect to my dad because my dad, he would purchase things. They were bigger than a leather bomber jacket. It could be he shows up with a brand new Bronco, vehicle one day. But there's something about if I feel down, you get this little dopamine rush. So at a young age, not only did I love earning the money, but I loved spending the money. And that really kind of snowballed. I got a lot of credit cards at a young age and got myself pretty trapped into that even before I got married.
Hi there, I'm Wendy Rimmelspacher, and welcome to the podcast show Dim to Daring. Do you feel like there's something bigger waiting for you, but you're not sure how to make it happen? You're in the right place. I'm here to bring you inspiring stories, powerful insights, and practical strategies to help you reignite your spark, realign with your purpose, and take those bold steps towards the life you were meant to live. Let's dive in, because you're not finished yet. You're just getting started. Welcome back to Dim to Daring. I'm your host, Wendy Rimmelspacher, and I'm so glad you're here. Today's episode is about something we all face but don't always talk about. It's our relationship with money. Building financial confidence is such a key part in creating a life that feels aligned and full of possibility. My guest today, Stephanie Hance, knows this both professionally and personally. With a degree in accounting and a career spanning for-profit, nonprofit, and education sectors, she has continually stepped into bigger leadership roles. But beyond her career, she's been on a powerful journey of body acceptance and self-discovery, learning to honor what truly matters and now bringing that same mindset shift to money. Stephanie and I first connected several years ago through our careers. We quickly went from talking work to laughing at her witty humor and appreciating her authenticity. That's what makes today's conversation even more special for me to share with you. Stephanie is also a wife, a mom of 3, and a very proud grandmother of 4. She works from home, leading her team with presence and encouragement, and she brings that same warmth into her family and friendships. You'll feel it here too on this show. In our conversation, she shares how she and her husband are taking daring steps to trust each other and build a true partnership in their finances. She brings both vulnerability and accountability, something I know will resonate with so many of you. So whether you want to gain confidence in an area of your life or quietly crave it, settle in and lean forward because Stephanie brings that vulnerability and accountability together today, which could be just what you need. Stephanie, welcome to Dim to Daring. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, thank you, Wendy. I love that introduction. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You are so welcome. Now, I know part of your courage today comes from being willing to look back before looking forward. Our early money stories, those moments around the kitchen table, or little things we overheard as kids that maybe we shouldn't have, shape so much of how we see money as adults. So let's start there, at the beginning. Take us back to your childhood. What do you remember about how money was talked about, or maybe not talked about, in your home growing up?
I think that's such a great question. And it's not really something that I would have leaned into on my own. Yet it's kind of crazy because our childhood is our foundation, right? So
Right.
as I was thinking about it and looking back, I vividly remember coming home and my mom would be sitting at the table and she'd be crying because she'd be working on bills. And I don't know if it's a firstborn thing or if it's a firstborn daughter thing, but I want to fix things. So when I would see my mom crying over bills, I couldn't fix it. I was a kid. I couldn't make money. So it hurt. It was kind of traumatic for me to see that. The other thing connection I made was that my parents were not connected when it came to money. My dad made the money and my mom had to figure out how to use the money. So there was definitely a disconnection that happened there. And then I think also what I reflect on is, in school where they would say, hey, we're going to go on this trip to Washington, D.C., or you have this opportunity to do whatever that is. I just remember always having this knowing that there's no way I'm going to bring this question back to my family because I would not put that kind of stress on my mom. So I guess I think I see fear around money, scarcity around money, and a little bit of shame around money, if that makes sense.
Mm. Wow, you have so much insightful information about this, and you were so in tune to your mom at that age. And I think a lot of us are, especially as women, being aware of the feelings around it, and you absorbed it greatly.
Definitely. And I'm very close to my mom. So anything that would impact my mom, she was like my barometer of being okay. So when she was not okay, I did not feel okay.
Oh, gosh, thank you for sharing that. It's so striking how the way money was handled in our childhood homes, how it still can echo in our lives today. Like maybe just that we haven't taken action on it or tried to reverse it. And I appreciate so much that you are wanting to shift that feeling you have and move beyond it today. And that leads me to this. What messages about money, spoken or unspoken, did you absorb during those impressionable years?
Well, I think one of the biggest one is that it's private or it's scary, or maybe one of the biggest is that it's scarce. Like the scarcity of money and what do you do when there isn't enough?
That's huge. That's hard to even swallow.
It is.
Now, today, as things are so different, and I think COVID showed us, opened a world to us too about what we can do. There's some more empowerment coming from the digital era and online that people didn't have access to years ago. That opens up a new world to us, possibly if we open our minds to it.
And that's the key, I think, opening your mind. And you just sometimes just need whatever that spark or trigger is for your mind to open. So even as you're talking about COVID, during that time period for me, there wasn't really this opening. So it's interesting that everyone's trigger is so different.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah, yeah, I think we had to move through it to see some of the benefits that happened because of it.
Good point, definitely. Because sometimes it's the hindsight that gets you there.
Right. Yeah. That's powerful because so many of us carry those unspoken type lessons without even realizing it. How did those early experiences shape your relationship with money as you became an adult?
Well, I think a lot of it, like when I look back to when I'd received my first jobs, just this excitement that I could create money was there and that I didn't have to go to someone to ask if I could spend the money because it was my money and I could do what I wanted with it. So, yes, it was mine. And so I would continue to make money. But then I also discovered that I continued to spend money. So I actually got my first credit card at the age of 16. Believe it or not, it's Macy's now, but it was Bon Marché then. I bought a leather bomber jacket with my $200 credit limit, and I loved that jacket. So that kind of gave me, I think purchasing gives me like a little bit of a dopamine rush. And that's where I think I connect to my dad because my dad, he would purchase things. They were bigger than a leather bomber jacket. It could be he shows up with a brand new Bronco, vehicle one day. But there's something about if I feel down, you get this little dopamine rush. So at a young age, not only did I love earning the money, but I loved spending the money. And that really kind of snowballed. I got a lot of credit cards at a young age and got myself pretty trapped into that even before I got married.
Wow, I don't think you're alone on that at all. Our ages are a little bit different here, Steph, but because when I was graduating from high school, you couldn't get a credit card. But then I remember when it opened up and young kids were getting them. It's a shame that that happened because I think so many of them, like you, found themselves in trouble because nobody was teaching about how to handle the responsibility of a credit card at that time, but they were handing them out like candy.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm sorry you got caught up in that, but you have a great story to tell, and that leather bomber jacket seems to still light you up. I can hear it in your voice. That was a great
I
jacket.
I love that jacket. I wish I still had it hanging in a closet. But yeah. So, but then following that were many purchases that I have no recollection of, and I think that's where you get in trouble with credit. It's so darn easy, and then you get these little dopamine rushes with all of these purchases. And for what? You end up donating them or whatever. It just becomes a snowball effect.
Yes, definitely. It's amazing how those early impressions can quietly run the show until we name them, which brings me to this moment in your story. When did you first realize that those childhood money experiences were still influencing your financial decisions today?
That is a really good question because I don't know if I would have really labeled it my childhood impacting me. Um, but it was obviously a continuation of practices. Um, so I've known for a while that I have a problem with money, but I would always have this realization, like a quick realization, and then I would move into fix it mode because I think like a lot of moms, professional women, we want to fix things. So I would like, okay, let's assess the situation, let's come up with a plan. And a lot of the times the plan would be, what is your credit? Where could I get a low interest loan to pay off that credit? Or where could I get another credit card where you'd have so many months, same as cash, and then transfer that balance so that I could then dig myself out of this hole. So I'd get really excited about it and I would do that for a little bit, but then what would happen is some kind of surprise would come up and I would need to spend more money than I had. So eventually, then you have credit card balances and you have the loan or the transfer that you took to pay off those credit card balances. So you end up in this cycle. And so as soon as a loan would be paid off, well, now I have credit card balances again. And so then I would try to just kind of ignore it and go about life. It just was a pattern that I repeated over and over.
You know, Stephanie, and I think what you described is very common. There's so much shame around it. And probably many friends of yours found themselves in the same way, having that spending habit and not knowing how to get themselves out of it. And it seemed taboo, like it's something we don't talk about. And yet, that's where you can get your greatest sense of strength is through your circle of friends and just talking about how did you get yourself out of it? What did you do? What should I do? And having that healthy conversation to support each other. Did you have any friends that you felt like you could talk about this with, or was this something you held deep within and you just tried to fix it yourself since you're a fixer?
I'd say yes, not a vast amount of friends. I have a couple close friends that I could talk to about it. I would say one of my friends finds herself in the same predicament. And so we'll talk about that. And she'll ask me, well, what would you do in this situation? Would you take out a loan? And I could speak from past experience and say, well, that's a great idea if you could have the discipline on the other side of that loan.
Mm,
So I did have that. But one of the things I was thinking of as you were speaking are conversations when you go out with a group of friends. And you know that certain ones are really good with money and there would be the shame like where I want to hide that part of myself with certain people. Also, I don't want to bring embarrassment to my spouse either because I think that he worries a lot more about perception of others. I don't have that as much as he does, but I kind of want to honor how he feels. But then that brings me a little more shame.
mm,
So, yes, I have a support mechanism, but I will also say I hide from my support mechanism when I want to. So, if I want to go buy the things, probably not going to talk about it. Or if I do, my support mechanism might encourage me to say, well, you deserve that. So it's a double-edged sword, I
sure.
guess.
Oh, yeah. I think we all could find moments of that where our mind is saying, you deserve it. You haven't bought anything in a while.
Right?
You know, what does this hurt to buy this one thing? And while I get how tempting it is, that one jacket, that one thing that makes you feel more like you, It can feel so empowering, even like it sparks something. But it's important to remember that staying trendy can also be expensive, right?
Exactly.
And without a plan, it can only perpetuate the problem. What you're really talking about, Steph, is about mindset, building healthy momentum with money.
And the stick to itness, if that is a word. So, like I said, I've had sparks, but I got to keep the fire going. I can't let down my guard too much.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, it's like a recommitment every day to the thing you value, right?
Exactly.
Well, I love that you're noticing the threads between past and present and you're learning about the fixing it, but also that moment where you feel like I need this and I deserve this and I want to buy this. So I'm trying to bridge that together, past and present, so that you can have that vision that you want to achieve for your future.
Right.
What was the moment or series of moments when you decided enough is enough? What brought you to today where you wanted to go on this interview and talk about this and make a recommitment to yourself about money?
That is a very good question. You know how sometimes your body just kind of brings you to your knees and says something needs to change?
Yes.
I've been dealing with that, and I think a lot of it, I mean, I have a great job and I appreciate my job very much, but the emotional toll and stress that the job has taken on mind, body, spirit is a little rough.
Mm,
So if you look to my past, and my past is okay, I can't seem to control my spending, but I can control my career trajectory. I can always make more. I can find more. I can continue to create more. Well, I'm realizing I don't want to continue to create more because I don't want the pressure that comes along with those positions. It's great, but I'm at a stage of life that I'm trying to imagine what it might be like to step back in whatever capacity that is. But I do know that this is not great for me. So if I'm going to do that, I got to get control of what's going on with this money thing. So right now, money is controlling me because I have to make so much in order to continue to pay off the mortgage, all those
hmm
things. And I have to make a certain level to do that. And if I'm going to scale back, I've got to figure out the expenditure side. So I need to find freedom with money. So I would say that was kind of a continuing thought over maybe the past 6 months. I mean, it's always been a bother to me, but over the past 6 months, I'm like, I'm in bondage to this and I can't do it anymore.
Oh my gosh. I said it earlier and I'll say it again. You're so insightful, Stephanie. You're looking within yourself and you're trying to take action on those things that will make you more healthier in the future. And I love that because it's not too late to change your habits. And it's really about
Right.
focusing in on those things that you value. And it sounds like that's what you're doing is you're valuing your time and the jobs as you take on new jobs. I've always admired that about you, that you weren't afraid to take on a new career and you put yourself out there. But you're right, there's the downside to it. Yeah, you make more money, but there's more responsibilities and it starts eating away at the time you have to be you.
Right.
It feels like such a daring idea that you have around getting control of your money through changing your job, your career at some point so that you can spend more time being you and figuring out how to have time with all those grandchildren of yours.
Absolutely. And I think the environment shifted too. So, not a lot of people are lucky enough to say, first of all, that they've been married for 30 years, but to say that your marriage is actually better now than when it started or in the middle. So when you have I never expected to have this trust that has been developing, or I'm one of those people that I have an internal guard that's up that people don't really know about, but I'm very protective of my core self.
Mm,
And so to be married to someone where you feel like you can take down those walls a little bit has really played into this. If my marriage was the same as it was before, I think it would have been much more difficult. So I'm not saying people can't make changes, but for me, in order to make a core change like this to have someone I trust in the process with me has been kind of a game changer.
Yeah. Well, I'm so proud of you for deciding to rewrite your story and how the ending of this looks out as you ride into the next chapter. What did that conversation actually look like with your husband when you decided to partnership with him on this journey?
Well, it's kind of funny because I think I actually terrified him. So I had decided, I bet you it was probably late spring, that okay, I'm going to have to talk with him about this. And anytime money has come up in the past, it's usually met with tears, or because I think I'm being protective and I'm feeling shameful about the
Mm,
money. So it scares him and he just retreats. So probably, like I said, late spring, I started just telling him, hey, come fall, we need to talk about money. We need to work together on this. I don't feel I can do this alone. I don't necessarily always have the discipline. Um, I'm not ready to do it now, but we need to have this conversation.
wow, that was so vulnerable, Stephanie.
Yes, thank you. And I set myself a timeline though. So I think that's important. Like if you're going to do it, because I could have just said, yeah, we got to talk about money at some point, which I've done
Right.
before. But no, I put, okay, here's a deadline. What's funny about my deadline is I knew we were going on vacation for our 30th anniversary. And in my brain, I'm like, I don't really want to be controlled with what we might spend on that vacation. So let's set it for the fall and then we'll talk about it.
Oh,
It's
that's precious.
strategic, very strategic. But throughout that time period, I would remind them, this is coming. We're going to be doing this. We're going to have this conversation. So one morning, I don't know if it was after a walk, I was sitting on the front porch and it was actually a little bit before fall, but I started kind of spilling the beans, I guess you'd say. And so in his brain, because I've talked about it so much, I think he probably thought we were in hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt, and he had it pretty built up in his mind. So when we actually sat down to talk about it, he's like, okay. He listened and he's like, okay, well, that's not so bad. And he was on board. So that was kind of where I started laying out, okay, here's where our debt is. This is when the debt is supposed to be paid off. And just kind of started talking through those things. And again, he was more afraid than what I delivered. So maybe if people are looking at this, scare someone before you give them the reality so that, it's not so bad.
Great tactic. Well, it worked
Yes,
for you. I'm glad it did. And you're right. There is a little bit of that reveal that it's not as bad that will make your
right.
story end better.
I don't know if it's the best strategy, but it was my strategy.
Well, it adds some humor to this, but I think we all can relate to that. And you are the one that does most or all of the books for the family. Is that right?
All. It's
Okay.
actually kind of frightening. I've said if I get hit by a truck, we're in trouble. And so my plan is actually was to give everything to my oldest son, who's followed in my footsteps. But fortunately, he is a lot more like his father when it comes to being reasonable with spending. But I thought Dylan's going to have to step in and take over because Brian's going to be at a loss. But I have
Mm.
clutched this thing so tightly for so long that yeah, he really has had no clue. And
Oh,
that's not a good place for him, and it's not fair, to be really honest, to have that in a marriage. And I think there has been, quite a bit of guilt surrounding that too. It's one thing when someone does the money. It's another thing when the person doesn't even know how to log into the bank account. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
that's not fair. It's not like I would have not shown him how, but if he didn't ask, I didn't feel I
Right.
had to tell. So
Well,
yeah.
have you guys talked about what the future looks like? Will you be sharing updates regularly about the financial status of loans and
Oh
debt?
yes. Well, I need daily accountability. And I will say on my part, it's the bunch of little purchases that get me in trouble. So how that looked like this morning, I've been following this woman that I'm really interested in that is offering some nutritional supplements. I've done some research on them and determining if I would buy them. So this morning I told him, I need you to know I spent $58 on this supplement. My plan is to discontinue this other supplement, but I want you to know about it. And in the past, I would not have told you. I would have not mentioned it. I guess you could say I would have hidden it. So anytime those moments are coming up now, I talk to them about it. Even silly things like on Facebook, they might have some kind of like garage sale website. I'll be like, oh, I really like this chair. What do you think? And he's being very wise and saying, if you really feel like you need to have it, you can buy it, which reverse psychology for me is, well, I don't really need it then. Whereas if you tell me no, I want it. I want it. But it's some of that openness. And we
Yeah.
started a spreadsheet for groceries because I think that's an area where we spend way more than we think. So just trying to maintain that and on a monthly basis say, okay, we thought we would spend, I'll say $1,000 on groceries, but this is what we actually spent. So it's just honesty about every purchase. It's we planned kind of like, okay, what can we potentially pay off? What do we have in reserves right now that we might convert and use it to pay something off to free up more money for like debt snowball. I'm sure you've heard of that methodology. So
Yes.
we did pay off. We paid off my car, which then is freeing up more money. Um, we were determining together what's more important. Do we want to focus on increasing a savings account or do we want to focus on decreasing this debt? So we're having those conversations. And honestly, for me, it's freeing because I don't feel like I'm holding on to everything or controlling it. There's some scariness for me, like going even into Christmas, because I would say I am a very giving person to myself and to others. So gift giving situations, I love them, but it causes me anxiety because I don't always know if I'm giving enough, which is silly because I realize it's a material thing. So there's been some conversations about that. All right, going into Christmas, have the separate account that some money's going into. So Christmas doesn't become one of those events that I'm spending January, February, March recovering from, that we go into it with a plan. So there's just a lot of conversations surrounding that. The reality is, I'm always going to be more technical. That's not his skill set. Um, but I have to be open. Even when it feels like it's something silly, I'm trying to be open.
Oh my gosh, there's so much there that you've done that just is so empowering and for your marriage as well as for your future finances as a family unit. It's just amazing that you unpacked so much here about, your loans, your debt and sharing the vulnerable pieces about I'm purchasing this and I'm pulling back in this area. I'm feeling relieved just listening to you talk. That must feel so good. How does Brian feel about it?
I think he feels trusted, which he probably hasn't felt before. And I think it brings us closer because, when areas are taboo and you're holding things back in any relationship, it it causes stresses that you don't always see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kind of
And I think
buries
he's
some
feeling
feelings deep.
it does, and I think he's feeling hopeful. I mean, one thing I've always told him even before this, because I've known with myself, if I need to set something aside that I can't really have control of. So I've been fairly good when it comes to retirement, putting things aside for retirement. Um, so I've really leaned into stressing that when money would come up, don't worry, house will be paid off, everything will be great. So there's some things that have been good there, but the day to day, he's been so in the dark, and I think he just feels hopeful.
Oh, that's great. What a gift you've given him by opening this door to talk about finances. That
It's a
wasn't
gift to
easy.
both of us. No, it wasn't easy.
Yeah, yeah. So I can imagine taking those steps built so much confidence. And just for everyone listening who feels like they're behind, I want to pause here and ask you, for the women listening who feel behind with money, their own money issues, what would you say to them about starting where they are?
Well, I think the first part is facing it, and it may not be as bad as you think. Um, so for me, like I've told you before, I was good at facing it, but then I would kind of go back undercover. But I think that's the best place to start. But I also think that it's really important to feed your spirit and what you're seeing and your mind when it comes to that. So when you face it, what are you doing for yourself to encourage you and remove the shame? So for me, I do like podcasts. I love podcasts. So I just started digging in there. How can I find encouragement in a podcast? How could I find encouragement on Instagram from friends? That's where I lean into because without kind of a support base that keeps you going or something that is encouraging a mind shift, it's very difficult to keep going. See, I think you just start out by facing it, getting on the phone, opening the credit card balances, laying out what truly is coming in, and being pretty honest about what is going out. Some of the things that I'm still realizing when it comes to expenditures are all the little things that you kind of forget about, like the Mr. Car Wash membership, or oh yeah, I do buy pet insurance. I remember telling my husband about that. He's like, "We have pet insurance." I'm like, yeah, we do. So it's there's and you've got to be, I think, just gentle with yourself. And really, your podcast reminded me that shame does not to be need to be part of this. And if shame is introduced, what do? We tend to run from shame. No one wants to sit in that feeling.
No, they don't. And to know that you're not alone and to talk about it like you did so beautifully. Thank you for illustrating this journey with all of us because it makes the shame go away, or it reduces its power over us when we talk about it. And that's
Absolutely.
exactly what you did. That was
Thank you.
beautiful.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
I love your encouragement. That's so beautiful. Also, knowing what your values are and reminding yourself of that each day will help keep you on track, just so that you know I'm working towards having a more peaceful journey and not being so stressed out, to be more present. Maybe you value being present with your family and friends. And so being present means doing something to alleviate the stress you're feeling. Anyway, just for what that's worth, I think just leaning in on your values and remembering that each day will also strengthen your commitment to whatever your journey is, whether it's money, whether it's relationships or success, whatever it is you're working on. Lean in on your values every day, and that will help get you further on your journey.
You saying that in your podcast helped me tremendously because I mentioned I like to give. But when giving is combined with shame because you know you're not giving from a place you should give, it becomes difficult. So now when I'm thinking about that, I'm like, okay, if I get money under control and I know what I'm doing there, it will allow me to give from a place that is better. It allows me to give from a place where I'm not stealing from another area to provide a gift that does bring me pleasure. And so I value giving, but I want to disconnect the shame. So I'm like, okay, well, how can I do that? So listening to what you're talking about when it comes to your value system, uh, that really helped me a lot. So I'm asking myself that question quite a bit. So when I see something that I want to buy for a grandchild, I look at it and I think, okay, well, they do have parents. If I do that now, how will that impact my future of being able to do it from a better place? So the value question's big.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thanks for illustrating that. Yeah, and remember too that sometimes, I know you love to give, and sometimes giving your time, like put a value on that, because it doesn't have to be something material, but I'm sure your gift of giving time is also appreciated beyond what you could imagine.
That's super true, especially when I think of my son and daughter-in-law with 3 children, and they will consider it priceless if I give them a night out and I put the children to bed.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Oh, that's a super beautiful glimpse into your life right now. And it ties perfectly to the last question I love to ask every guest. What's your most recent daring step you've taken, big or small, and what did it open up for you?
Also a great question. I think the obvious one is my journey with money, but I'm going to actually point to a new habit. I have started probably in June walking almost every morning, and just the headspace that opens up to new sparks has been amazing. I forget that sometimes walking, yes, it's good for your physical health, but the mental health shift that I gain from it has been priceless.
I love that so much. It does. It opens up the creativity, the time for creativity, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And the insights. So I'll share this one. It was interesting. I was walking. And I'm usually listening to a podcast, but what I'll say is importantly, I'm not staring at a phone and I'm not staring at a computer screen. So I'm listening and I'm processing. But I walked by this family and they had a young daughter. She looked like maybe she was 3. She was very little and she was leading a dog that was probably 3 to 4 times her size. I think they're called like a Great Pyrenees or something like that. And I looked at the mom and I said, "Wow, look at that little girl and how she's controlling that dog that's so much larger than her." Well, that caused a spark in my brain. So as I was walking, I thought, wow, control is an illusion, isn't it? That dog at any point could jump, run after a squirrel, and that girl
Mm,
is down on her knees. So from there, I started thinking about control really being an illusion that we've created in life. We think we're in control, but it just takes sometimes that one thing, and all of a sudden you've lost control. But then that went from, well, is loss of control always bad? Sometimes the greatest things in life involve a loss of control that moves you to action. So without those morning walks and not staring at a computer, not staring at my phone, I don't know if I'd be making those connections. And some of those little things are pretty life changing.
wow, that is a mic drop moment right there. What a great full circle around control and not control. And now it's just about taking those brave steps forward and letting that control go.
Right.
Where can we listeners follow you, Stephanie?
Well, I am on Instagram. I'm under Sparkles. Oh my gosh, I don't even know if I remember my handle, but I believe I've sent that to you, so you can include it in the notes with our podcast. But I am out there on Instagram that I look at from time to time, probably too much, which is why I need to take walks. But that's pretty much primarily where you would find me. And people, I encourage connection. Connection is one of those things that keeps me going. So that's probably where you'd find me.
Great. I'll be sure to include that in the show notes. And I just found it here. It's Sparkles with the S on the end, 005. So that's where you can connect with Stephanie. And it's been such a pleasure talking with you today, Stephanie, my friend.
Oh, thank you, Wendy. I've loved it. And I think, honestly, the more times you share your story, it brings accountability, but it also, when you hear your own voice saying things, there's something about like, okay, it gets implanted in your brain and it provides encouragement. So I appreciate just the opportunity to share where I'm at.
Your journey is so exciting and interesting, and I know that it has impacted the listeners here on Dim to Daring. Thank you.
You're welcome, Wendy.
Thank you so much for joining me today on Dim to Daring. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you subscribed, shared it with a friend, or left a review. It helps more women just like you discover the show. Remember, you're not finished yet, you're just getting started. Until next time, keep daring to grow and shine.